Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. Happy opening day for Major League Baseball. Russ and I are both excited. One of us is excited about a lesser team in New York. The question is, at the end of the season, which one will be the lesser team? But
that is the question.
Yes, I mean, one team's got a lot of injuries, and the other one, they have chronic injuries. Is Cespedes going to be back before September? That's a question.
Yeah, it depends if they're winning. We all know that. But two things. So the Mets are opening right now against the Nationals. It's Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. ESPN's showing Yankees-Orioles, which I just laughed at. Like, this is the Cy Young and the runner-up Cy Young. And actually, Scherzer is probably the best pitcher in baseball other than Chris Sale or deGrom. You can throw them all in there.
Right.
They're not showing any of them. The other thing is, now the Nationals, I will tell you this. What?
I was going to say, one of the reasons why, if Bryce Harper was there, they might have carried that game.
Yeah, that's just stupid. If that's literally, if that's
ESPN is a star-driven vehicle. They're stupid.
Stupid. But to get back to the game here, there's not a lot of movies where I know the theme songs, and the theme song for the Nationals opening day was The Magnificent Seven. Now, the only reason I know that is because it's my dad's favorite movie, and I probably watched it 10 times. The original. I've never seen the new one. But I do have the new one.
The new one's good.
Yeah, I have it on the DVR because you told me, so I'm going to watch it. But I'm thinking, if they're seven or magnificent, the Mets are going to win opening day again. So I'm happy.
Well, I mean, like I said, the Yankees start at 2:00, and I'm looking forward to this year. And I was joking about in our Facebook comments about 28th World Championship. It's just, that's just something that Yankee fans do. Although there was some Major League Baseball reporters says how to infuriate a Yankees fan, tell them that the Mets will win a World Series before the Yankees, and I'm like, okay, buddy, stop dipping into the hallucinogens and step away from the crack pipe, because until the ownership of the Mets starts spending money, which they should, because
they at least did with deGrom, so it could be a start.
They did, although I know a lot of people in New York, a lot of media members were critical of that because he had 2 years left in his contract. It's weird.
But they don't look at, like, again, if that was going to run out, right? If those same media members, if the Mets didn't sign deGrom, this year was a waste. So then going into spring training next year, they would have all been killing the Mets for not extending deGrom. So I don't want to hear that. That's just.
I mean, basically, their argument was this was a free year. You didn't have to negotiate. You could have negotiated later in the season or over this. They were deathly afraid, and you know this. They were deathly afraid of Jacob deGrom going into the final year away from free agency, him costing them more, and going to the Yankees.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if he'd go to the Yankees. He might. But the other thing is, 2 years ago, before his Cy Young year, they negotiated with him, and it didn't go well.
Right.
And so that's another reason that those other guys should have brought it up. All right, so the annual Genesis reunion tour is hitting like a fever pitch again in articles. Mike Rutherford was just on like Good Morning Great Britain. Like, okay, whatever. Is it ever a good morning in Great Britain? I don't know. But
not at the dentist.
No. But anyhow, he was basically saying, hey, you know what? I'm healthy. Pete's out there. I mean, not Pete. Phil's out there doing it. Mike said he's in. Okay. This is where I draw the line now. We have to be realistic. Like, I saw their last tour. You didn't like it. I did. But we're getting past that. Phil's not the same. We know he can't drum. I am not paying $185 a seat to see the same three and Phil's son. Not doing it.
No.
That's the starter of this whole conversation.
And you know what that'd be like? And people went to go see Van Halen with Wolfie Van Halen playing bass and David Lee Roth singing like he had gravel in his throat.
Roth sang better than you thought, but the kid on bass wasn't great. I agree.
Right. So, and this is the thing. We saw them in, I think it was 2009.
Yes.
This is not worthwhile at all if Gabriel and Hackett are not there. If they're not there, I wouldn't spend a friggin' dollar on it.
They have to be there. Like, literally have to be there. Robinson Cano just hit a homer in his first at bat as a Met.
Ex-Yankee.
He's a Met right now, Mike.
Check him for steroids.
I'm not checking him for anything.
Where's Bartolo Colon?
I'm not checking him for anything. But end of the day, I want to just roll this back and just let people know, as big a Genesis fan as I am,
yes,
Darryl Sturmer did a great fill-in job. I've seen him enough. Now, I would still rather have Chester Thompson than Phil's kid. I don't know why Chester's out of the picture, but he seems to be out of it.
Well, I don't know how old Chester is. Maybe he's just retired. I mean,
maybe.
You know, I mean, there's no acrimony there. Chester played drums for Collins solo, but he isn't doing it anymore. So,
and you know, even people on my Facebook page are saying, "Well, if Phil's there singing, I'd see it." Well, there has to be more because people don't realize Phil's range isn't what it used to be. That's why they need Gabriel desperately to sing the Gabriel stuff. If Phil just sings his stuff, he'd be okay.
I saw it 10 years ago. It was I saw them in the 80s. I saw them in the 90s. They were great. I never saw them with Gabriel. If Gabriel's not there, I mean, I'd rather see Steve Hackett's coming to Buffalo. I would go see Steve Hackett because, and not that the singer that is with him is great, but he plays the guitar like he did when he was with him in the 70s. I don't need to see the Mama Invisible Touch tour in 2019. It's either Gabriel and the full old Genesis or sayonara, bye-bye.
Right. And I don't need Piers Morgan talking about how the band hasn't played Supper's Ready since 82. First off, I was there for that. I was in Forest Hills, New York. I saw it from like 10 or 15 rows on the floor. Yes, it was great. Piers Morgan wasn't there. I wonder if Piers Morgan was even at the England shows. I seriously question it.
You know what I think he's talking about? And then we'll get to hockey, I promise. Yeah. I think what he's talking about is that Nebworth concert in 1980 or 81 when they helped out Gabriel. Gabriel had did something, some sort of benefit, and it fell flat in its face, and the band got together for one event. And
there was a bootleg album of that, and I meant to buy it, and I never did.
And I think that's what he might be talking about because
you and I listened to that one. I remember that. Yeah.
So
okay,
anyway, let's get started. We'll all right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Babe Ruth. I'm Michael Lagello. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with a game that we both – I mean, normally you're at Flyers games, but you saw some of the game today. I watched it live. Anthony was at the game.
I watched some of it last night. I was coming back from a funeral. So.
Right. And it was a 5-4 shootout loss. The Leafs lost to Philadelphia 5-4 in a shootout. And it's not the game itself. It's what we saw from that game. And I'm in the process of writing my blog. I can do a webcast and write at the same time. You look at that game and you look at the Leafs over the last 2 weeks, and there are warning signs here. And sometimes, a team can turn it on at the end of the season and just stop right into it and play great in the playoffs. I don't get that vibe. I don't get that feeling with the Leafs right now. And last night was the second game in a row after they played 3 games against Nashville, Buffalo, and the Rangers, where they played very responsible defensively and kept the shots under 30. In those games, they went 1-1-1. Then this week, they played Florida. They were up 7-3. They allowed a couple late goals, so they allowed 36 shots, 5 goals. And last night, they allowed 44 shots to the Flyers, so they allowed 9 goals and 80 shots. And they played a wide-open offensive game, which is not conducive to winning in the playoffs.
No, not at all.
And Babcock was like, well, when you want to play run and gun, this is what you're going to get. Problem is his message of playing responsible defensively either is not getting through or is not registering with that core group. And I'm not saying he's lost them, but I think they realize they suck at playing two-way hockey. If they play responsible defensively, Russ, they can't generate offense, and when they generate offense, they can't play careful enough defensively to not give up chances going the other way. This is a recipe for early elimination for the Leafs if they don't change their ways.
Yeah, they're like caught in between. Like, honestly, I wouldn't have thought this even a month ago, but I do think there's a chance that if they keep playing like this, they get swept in the playoffs. Like, literally just swept, because Frederik Andersen's playing with no confidence. The 5-hole goal he gave up to Ryan Hartman was bad. You know, I watched all the third period, part of the second. Like I said, Zaitsev, to you offline, Zaitsev is like a puck mover now, nothing more. Riley plays great, but it's not enough. They don't, Muzzin wasn't even noticeable in that game for me. Now maybe he did something great early on. I don't know, but
Riley is great. But if you look at the goals, the third goal by Couturier and the fourth goal by Hartman, you know who was out there? It was the Matthews line, and it was Riley and the Hainsey. And in both of those, in the one,
I blame Hainsey more. I saw Riley making some great plays, keeping the puck in the offensive zone, some really high skill plays. I didn't see Hainsey do much.
Yeah, and Hainsey on the Hartman goal, Hainsey went behind the net, thinking Riley was going to pass it behind the net. And when whoever it was, I think it was Lawton, won the puck battle, Hartman was wide open in front of the net for a chance. So it's like, I mean, I think they're playing again. I've said Hainsey does not belong on the bottom.
No, it's a bad pairing. That's really what it is.
Well, that to Babcock. That's the only option. So
I know, and if that's the only option going in the playoffs, it's not good. Clearly, and we've talked about this. Clearly, Anderson is fatigued. I don't think playing him down the stretch like Babcock's talking about is going to aid his confidence. It's going to hurt his body. Maybe mentally he'd be a little more fit,
right?
But he's not going to be more physically fit, and that's really it's a combination.
Well, I can only tell you what I hear coming out of both Anderson and Babcock yesterday was a bit confusing because, Anderson didn't want to talk about how many games. He just says, I want to get my swagger back. I want to get my confidence back, blah, blah, blah. That's lip service. Now, the thing is that basically they're saying, Steve Briere, the goaltending coach, Babcock and Anderson, have put their heads together and determined how many games he's going to play. Well, then Babcock comes out and says, well, Freddie's a man. Freddie's not 12. He'll tell us what he wants. So if he plays 5 of 6 games, does that mean Freddie Anderson is to blame for him being tired going into the playoffs? If you're a coach, you don't leave it up to the players to make the decision. You tell them you were not you were playing 3 games.
Right.
We want you rested going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him for like the next 2 in a row, and then I would play him regular rotation again. Honestly, I would give him like a 2-day off thing where he knows he is not going to be used. Period.
Their schedule right now is at Ottawa on Saturday, at the Islanders on Monday, then a second of back-to-back at home against Carolina on Tuesday, Tampa Bay at home for the home finale on Thursday, and then at Montreal on Saturday.
So you know what I would do then? I would play him against Ottawa, and I'd sit him on the Saturday game. So at least that's like a week off, even though he's not playing games.
Yeah, well, okay, and reportedly he's probably going to play against the Islanders because they played Sparks against the Islanders at Nassau the last time, and Sparks' inability to
who cares? Like, the game doesn't matter.
Well, it means something for Tavares, and it's going to be with it.
They're going to worry about that. Let's tell you something. That's the least of their worries right now, honestly.
And he's probably going to play the last game in Montreal because they have 4 days off between that game, or actually 5 days between that game and the first round, the first game in Boston against the Bruins. So I hope
they got to do something with them. They do, because the 5-hole goal was bad. Overall, he doesn't seem to be moving as fast. I don't think his post-to-post speed is what it was early in the year when I was like, wow, this guy's really playing it great. I get he's got all the wins, but lately he's a reason for the losses. The other thing is the team mentally is fragile. Like, John Tavares doing what happened to him in the shootout would never happen to him if he was fully confident in everything that was going on. You could blame the ice, you could say it was freaky, whatever, but I'm telling you, I have never seen a player do that, and for a guy like Tavares to do that, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with confidence. The guy just scored 4 goals. I mean, the guy just scored 4 goals.
The game was on the line for him. He could have won the game, right, with that shot, and instead it goes off his stick and they lose.
Yeah.
That's where I get into the confidence part. I do.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that the Bruins have been stepping up their social media trolling with not only Marchand, but with Pasternak. I have a feeling that's going to get – see, that's the thing. This is being played out in the media, and, if it goes down this road and the Leafs lose in the first round, which I think the Bruins have to be favored because they just played much better down the stretch. Again, I mean, we'll cover this when it happens, but I just wonder what the reaction is going to be in Toronto. It would be 3 years of being eliminated in the first round, and you can fault the playoff format all you want. The secret of this team, there is no secret about what their problem is. The problem is that they can't play defense, and these players either have to learn how to play defense when it comes to guys like Marner and Matthews. And Marner is a pretty good defensive player. When it comes to guys like Matthews, who was on the ice for at least 2 goals yesterday. Nylander, who I continue to believe is not going to.
Matthews is the only reason they tied the game, right? I mean,
right. Nylander and Matthews scored, but you know, at a certain point, you have to realize, okay, yes, we can score goals, but you also have to prevent them.
You do. It's just at this point they can't play hockey to prevent goals. They can't. Their best bet is to try and outscore and play a puck possession game where we're going to keep the puck in the offensive zone as long as we can, and that'll be our defense, because they can't play defense to lock it down. It's impossible with the personnel they have.
And do you think they can? Do you think they can beat the Bruins doing that?
That's the only chance.
Yes.
Because,
but do you think they can?
I mean, I think it's possible because they do have a lot of guys that could score, and they're one of the few teams that could roll 4 lines. And if you do that, look, the Bruins, they have 4 lines too, but they have some older, slower guys on some of those lines.
Right.
Maybe you could tire them out. Maybe if it's at the battle of the third lines, the Leafs could win that with Kadri. But again, it's going to have to be something like that because Anderson's not playing lockdown. The defense can't play lockdown, and they don't even like you said, their best line's the Marner line, but it's not exactly hot. They don't have a hot line even going into these playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they're consistent. I mean they're
consistent, but they're not like on fire where you say, "All right, you know what?"
I mean they scored 7 goals on Monday against Florida, and that line had 5 of them. I mean Tavares had 4, but I'm just saying, you know, they're a consistent line. You can have a 100-point guy in Marner or close to it. You're going to have close to a 50-goal guy in Tavares. That's their best line. I mean, not slagging Matthews here because Matthews is at 36 now. He could score 40 in 60-some-odd games, which is nothing to sneeze at. Anyway, let's move on to a couple of the other games. The Bruins, I mean, there was literally no doubt in my mind that the Bruins were going to are going to be in second place, but anybody who thought there was still a mathematical chance of the Leafs catching the Bruins, it pretty much ended last night with the Leafs losing a point.
Have you got the same mathematical chance of the Flyers making the playoffs?
Yes. I mean, I was hoping that the Leafs would win that game last night just to shut people up about the Flyers. And now we have to wait one more game for them to be eliminated. But the Bruins win 6-3 against the Rangers. Now you were up. You saw the Rangers earlier in the week.
I did.
And I'm curious about what direction they're going to go in the offseason. I mean, we've heard a lot of talk about, you know, going big into free agency, names like Panarin and Carlson. You see there's a young core group with Zibanejad and a few other forwards that I think are pretty talented. But I mean, do you think they're going to go headlong into free agency, or do you think it's going to be more, you know, conservative?
I think it'll be more conservative unless for some reason Panarin sort of picks them, right? I think then there's a chance they go headlong into it because I still think Panarin and Carlson have a chance of going there. I would say that, as an example, if the Bob Panarin package deal breaks up, I think the Rangers be in on it. I think they'd be stupid not to be. Quinn wants to win. They've done their rebuild. If you could get Panarin and then maybe you call up Erik Karlsson and, you know, you have Lundqvist try and lure him over, right. You know what? That gives them a chance at least to be very competitive again. And I think they might go for that because right now, if you look at their current defense, Freddie Claesson, Neil Pionk won't even be there next year. Gilmore, these 3 guys will not be in the lineup. I think D'Angelo's earned it. He's getting points now in a lot of games.
So Pionk is tailed off offensively in the second half?
Yeah, and he's just soft in front of the net. Like, you can't have Pionk and D'Angelo on the same team, I don't think. Right. I think they play too similar of a game, and at least D'Angelo will hit a guy in the corner. Pionk's only got 23 points. I think if we look it up, he had like 20 points in the first couple months, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He must have tailed off completely.
Yeah. And he's taken 126 shots. and he's got 6 goals for his trouble. So, I just don't think he's a real everyday NHLer. He'd be fine to fill in at times and use that way.
Well, there's been literally no chatter coming out of San Jose since the deadline. And remember, after the deadline, you could sign Karlsson to an extension. There had been no news about that. So that would lead me to believe if everything was rosy and he wanted to stay there long term, that would have been announced on February 26th. It wasn't. So I'm thinking he's at least going to go to the 5-day negotiating window and hear what's out there. No, I know that I brought this up last week when we had Eck on the show, and he was talking about, that Tampa might not be a logical conclusion there. And because it was always rumored to be a destination, but now, with the Braden Point scenario, him scoring 40 goals, I don't see how they don't pay Braden Point almost as much as Kucherov.
Yeah. He's going to have to get paid around that. I think Tyler Johnson's the guy that's going to go. Now, maybe, again, are we in the last year of Coburn?
Yes. Yeah. Last year of Coburn, last year of Girardi, last year of Strawman.
Right. So maybe one of them comes back, but 2 of them will probably go.
Right.
Because Eric Cernak's fit in real well.
Yeah.
So,
and Cal Foot's probably going to come up.
And Cal Foot will come up. So I think that's where they could sort of save and sort of get away with it. Everybody knows they're the best team. Let's see what happens and see if they really can do it. I think they'll get to the conference finals. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
You can always make the joke with all the Rangers they have, they'll at least get to the conference finals. But I just think they're looking so good that it's hard to believe someone's going to knock them off.
Now, the other 2 games had playoff implications out west. The Stars win 2-1 over Calgary. The note I saw last night while just scanning through social media and flipping the channels was that Ben Bishop got hurt. Now, normally, I know Khudobin has played really well as their number 2, but and I don't have great hopes for Dallas getting past the first round, and I think they're going to get in the playoffs because, they're fairly comfortable in that first wild card spot. But if Bishop is hurt anything more than a tweak and it's something like a game or 2, I don't give Dallas much of a chance of going anywhere. Yeah,
I agree with that. I do want to go back to one thing.
Yep.
Anthony says, hey, Brendan Lemieux's an RFA after this season. They're going to sign him. There's no question. He loves it. They love him. They're playing him on the top line now. So, and he won't stay on the top line, but it's good to see what he can do in a Tom Wilson role, and he's doing a good job. The game I was at, he scored a goal, and I tweeted out he looked like Mario Lemieux, not Brendan Lemieux. So
and believe me, he's an annoying prick on the ice. And I'm saying that in a very positive, very that you need players like that. You need players that get underneath the other team's skin, and he does it very well. It's in his DNA, believe me.
Yeah. So he's gonna get re-signed. Lord says deGrom would have been a nice fit on the Phillies. Yeah, he would never have been on the Phillies. And deGrom made out in the first inning. Mike will be sad because our roto player Ryan Zimmerman made out with 2 men on. But oh well.
Choke artist.
Not according to what they said. They called him the walk-off king.
Okay. The other game in the West was Colorado beating Vegas 4-3. Colorado's
making a big push now. They really are
pushing. They've been doing it without Landeskog in the lineup. Yeah. And I guess Rantanen has been hampered a little bit. Right now, looking at the up-to-date standings, Colorado is at 83 points. They're 2 points ahead of Arizona and 4 points ahead of Minnesota. Sorry,
Minnesota's dying now. They are.
Now, Dallas is at 86. I think they're home and cooled out for first in the wild card.
And I didn't really answer the Bishop question. If they don't have Bishop, they'll lose first round.
Yeah. Now, can they win first round if they play? Well, they would play Winnipeg. No. So I don't think. I think they'll lose.
And they win a game. I don't know.
Yeah. But Colorado's at 83. Arizona's at 81. I don't know how Arizona's doing it. I give them all the credit in the world, but I don't know how they've been able to survive with all the injuries, but I give Rick Tocchet a lot of credit that they've been able to do that. Now, the marquee matchup tonight, everybody's looking at this one, is Columbus versus Montreal in Columbus at Blue Cross Arena. And Montreal is played one more game, and they're 2 points ahead. So if Columbus wins this, they move into a tie, and Columbus has the advantage, the tiebreaker advantage for regulation and overtime wins. So I think it's imperative that Montreal wins this game.
I mean, it's the season for Columbus, and it's very important for Montreal. This is where we're going to see what Bob is made of. And even if I'm Florida, I want to see what Bob is made of in this game, because like if Bob goes down and shuts out, they're playing in Montreal.
No, it's in Columbus.
It's in Columbus. Okay, so in his building, if he has a shutout, that's a big step for like any team that wants to sign him. If Bob loses this game with everything on the line,
right,
I got to sort of question it a little bit, because the team came up short, and maybe you came up short in this game. So I think there's a lot riding on Bob here.
Yeah, and I know he's had 3 shutouts in the last week.
But so this is the one that matters.
This is the one. All that is meaningless unless you win this game, because this is the one. It's a 4-pointer.
Yeah, Michael's saying that Columbus will win 10-0. Columbus can't score 10 in any game.
Yeah, and you're talking about, does that mean that Carey Price has torn his groin and they've shot Antti Niemi and like Brendan Gallagher's playing goal? Because that's the only.
I mean, Niemi could give up 10, but it's not going to happen.
Right. Okay, some interesting notes here. One, Justin Williams tweeted out just before the show that tonight, which is apparently the Carolina Hurricanes' last home game, will be the last storm surge of the season, breaking the hearts of every millennial and everyone who thinks that the storm surge is this great thing. They're not going to do it in the playoffs,
which I respect them for, by the way. I do.
Well, I respect them for not doing it in the playoffs, which means I think they should have not done it in the regular season.
No. Regular season's fine. They don't do the shootout in the playoffs either, Mike. Just letting you know.
I know that. It's just it's a gimmick. It's I don't know. I'm a traditionalist that follows traditional hockey markets.
Yeah, you put starch in your shirts at the cleaners too. I get it.
Okay. You weren't on the show yesterday, and we failed to talk about it, and it was notable the fight between Paul Byron and Mackenzie Weger in the game on, I believe it was Tuesday night, Montreal and Florida. Now, just the backstory here: Byron was suspended earlier in the year for a high hit on Weger, and he apologized on social media, but that only goes so far.
Weger really not much.
Right, it really doesn't do anything. Weger in the game challenged him to a fight,
right,
and Byron accepted the challenge.
And Byron's not a big guy.
Yeah, he's like 5'10" and 165 pounds, and Weger is like 6'3", 200. And Weger cleaned his clock. He knocked him out. And after this, J.P. Barry, Byron's agent, came out and railed about the code and how it's stupid. And Pierre LeBrun came out after and said he was sickened by the incident. And this is the thing. Do I want to see anybody get hurt? No. Do I want to see anybody concussed? No. The way to prevent this, if you're Paul Byron, is don't throw a high hit.
I will preface that I did want to see Roger Clemens get concussed after he threw at Mike Piazza's head, but we digress. Go ahead.
But so if you don't throw a high hit, then there's no need for the payback. But once he does that, then I think historically this is you have to pay the piper.
Yeah, in the eyes of the code, he did the right thing. In the eyes of what's more important, making the playoffs or standing up for yourself, he did the wrong thing. So the teammates will love him for doing it. Will the teammates still love him if he's the reason they don't make the playoffs? Like, it's a situation where I wish the league would just get the code out of here. They can, with the way they legislate. If they wanted to, they could get rid of it.
But they're never going to ban fighting.
Well, they don't have to ban fighting, but they could do other things to sort of like say, if there's a retaliatory fight, you get an automatic 2-game suspension. So like that fight would have cost Byron 2 games. And with only, 7 or 8 games left, would Byron have fought him then, knowing that if he fights, it would be a 2-game suspension? Like to me, that's an easy thing to put on there. And that's now if they do the retaliation next year, fine, who cares? But the idea is it sort of diffuses it for this year. And they do something like that, so it's not up to the player, because the player's always going to do what Byron did. Always.
And it could affect the Canadiens because Byron's a key player for them, and if he's out for a significant time period, then it could affect their playoff chances. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm a traditionalist. Somebody posted last night a Flyers Leafs brawl from, I think it was 2002 or 2003. Roger Nielsen was the Flyers coach, and Pat Quinn was the Leafs coach. It may have been 2004. And you know what? I loved it. It was great. It was great. Sandy McCarthy and Craig Berube and Ty Domi jumping all over each other. Cujo. It had to be 2002 because it was Cujo in that, or 2001. But
I don't know if it was 01 because McCarthy, I think, was on the Rangers in 01.
Okay, so maybe in 02.
Yeah.
But although
I like McCarthy, I covered him with the Rangers.
No, it wasn't 02 because they played the Islanders, and maybe it was 2000.
Might have been 2000, and maybe McCarthy went to the Rangers after that. Yeah,
that was the Sergei Berezin game-winning goal in 2000, I think, and then they lost to New Jersey in the second round. But anyway, so I love that. I'm sorry, that's in my DNA. I love hockey with fighting, so I hate that it's become now uncommon. But that's the way the league is going, and I don't know if they're ever going to legislate it out of the game, if they suspend higher, fine more, or whatever. But I mean, unfortunately this is a bad result. I mean, even Weger apparently after the game was upset that it happened. So I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but I know right now that the result is that Byron may be out for a while.
Okay, so if the guy who did it is upset that it happened, then why did he even do it? You know what I mean? It's like
because of the code.
No, but I go back to where, and Eck's not here, but like if I go and I punch Eck in the nose and then it just starts bleeding profusely, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I kind of wish I'd have just hit you in the eye. I'm really sorry I hit you in the nose.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't break your orbital bone instead of breaking your nose.
I mean, what's Eck going to say to me? He's still going to be, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I don't want to hear a post-game apology from the other guy because you still are the one who laid the smackdown. You didn't have to. You could have just both walked away from it, but you challenged the other guy. So once you challenge the other guy, you can hurt that guy. That is the risk of everything happening. Yes.
Now, finally, and maybe we'll take a question or two in the chat.
Yeah, they're good questions.
Okay. A lot of news, and we talked about it yesterday a bit with Eck and I about Adam Fox. Now, there was a report that came out earlier in the week that said sources were reporting that Fox was going to remain at Harvard. And once that happens, then you're going down the Jimmy VC road. Yeah. Because, if he's going to sign, he's going to sign this year. Now, Carolina owns his rights after the trade from Calgary. Carolina is loaded with defensemen. I mean, from the outside looking in, it would make sense for him to stay in Harvard because he could shop his wares anywhere. But if Carolina's offering him a good offer, then it makes sense.
We know Faulk's going to get traded, so there'll be a spot for him.
Yeah, well, maybe. But even if they trade Faulk, they're deep.
Yeah. I mean, they could sign him. Excuse me, for this year. Let him burn a year. Let him start with Charlotte. Let him be a black ace. If they, in the playoffs, it's fine.
Right. So, I mean, but now there are some reports. Well, actually, he spoke to John Buccigross of ESPN, and he was sort of, he didn't commit himself one way or the other.
Undecided, because that's how most of these players are. Because he might want to go back for Harvard, but what if he does win the Frozen Four? Then he might not want to go back to Harvard. He might want to go to Carolina, but maybe they weren't giving him all the top bonuses. So maybe now Carolina is willing to give him all the top bonuses.
Yeah, he might win the Hobie Baker, but remember, VC won the Hobie Baker in his junior year, and he still stayed for his senior season.
Right. So it's a very volatile situation, and it changes. And people reacted on Twitter already, and even one guy was like, well, Russ is not usually wrong, by saying he'd sign, but this time he is. But again, it's not over yet. Let's just see what's going to happen here. There's a lot of time left for all these other things to happen. And so I still believe in that.
Yeah. And Pierre LeBrun basically echoed what you said. It's like, any announcement of this one way or the other is going to come within 48 hours of them being eliminated or them winning the Frozen Four. So
now, a surprise topic is the All-American Football League. Tom Dundon came out and spoke to USA Today and basically said, if we don't get younger players, like if the NFL doesn't give us younger players and we don't become a development league for them, we're going to fold. And so he's basically thrown the gauntlet on the line, and whatever amount of money. Now, again, I don't know if he threw the whole $250 million in or whatever it was. He probably didn't, but he pledged it. So, maybe he put part of it in. But
that's a good investment there, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, again, just invest more into Carolina. You're closer to winning the cup than this stupid league is to doing anything. Because next year the XFL is coming in. And there'll be two leagues playing at the same time, vying for the same players. Like, I don't understand it. I get that there's a chance to become an developmental league for the NFL, and there's money in that. But is it really worth it to put it all on the line here to see if the NFL is gonna blink? Because that's where they're at now.
Yeah, and there was talk years ago about the CFL being a developmental league for the NFL, but they operate under a different rules, so it would not exactly be conducive. But anyway, let's take a couple questions and end the show because I want to watch the Yankees.
Yeah. The Mets are winning, so they may not be winning in a couple minutes. So
yeah, there you go.
Let's see. Although I love Robinson Cano, always have. Let's see. I can't even find a window that I have open for the chat room. Hold on, let me start closing windows here.
Just don't close the webcast.
I know. All right. Thomas has a question. He says, Connor Ingram was demoted to Orlando more than 2 weeks ago for what the team term and internal matter. Do you think the Lightning trade him at the draft? No, because, again, the internal matter may just be he wanted more playing time. It happens to a lot of goalies. I go back to Jonathan Quick was in Reading, and the guy who I used to sit next to, he's passed away, really nice guy. I used to write for his magazine, said, there's this kid in Reading, Jonathan Quick. Do you know much about him? I'm like, I know a little bit, but my feeling was then if he's in Reading, I don't know if I'm ever going to see him in the NHL. And sure enough, we did. So I don't jump to conclusions on that, and especially nowadays when there are so few goalie jobs and this happens more often than not. So I don't think that's a big deal. Anthony says, is Jack Drury, this is Ted's kid, really a must-watch for the up-and-coming prospects? I like him. I think he's got great speed. He's got really good stick and puck control. He can put the puck in the net, although I think he's more of an assist guy. Yeah. Is he fun to watch? Yeah, I do think he's worth watching.
Just as a note, Ingram has played 22 games this year. Eddie Pasquale is the number one.
Right, and Pasquale is a guy that he's pretty good too, and he's going to need a lion's share amount of the games.
Right, he's a veteran goaltender, and he played a lot of games last year too. And I think Pasquale was the guy in the playoffs. So I mean, they may simply be putting Ingram down in Orlando just to get him ice time, just to get him games. Yeah. And maybe he comes back before, because remember, the Calder Cup playoffs start around the same time as the NHL playoffs, so like April 10th, April 12th, something like that. So they may want him to get action because they know he's not going to get any action when they get into the playoffs because Pasquale will be the starting goalie.
Right. Anthony asks, will the Flyers make a play in UFA for either Carlson or Panarin? Making a play and getting a guy are two different things. They might make a play for everybody, but I heard something yesterday in the pregame on the radio saying that the Flyers – they were touting the lineup because they had Myers in there and they had Morin in there, and now they're bigger and they're grittier and everything on defense. And so if that's really their route, they're not going to get Erik Karlsson. They're not going to want any part of Erik Karlsson. I get wanting to be bigger on the blue line. The problem is if it's like Myers and you're bigger, faster, and mobile, great. That's not really Sam Morin. And so you're not going to be able to have a whole blue line of that. No team is, and no team should want that. You're going to need the Torrey Krug type guy mixed in there with a high skill level because they have Gostisbehere, whether he stays there or not, we don't know. They have Provorov, who, again, has to get a new deal. They need other guys to mix in there. They can't all be behemoths. They
Yeah,
can't.
and I think we heard the speculation about Spurgeon. He's got a year left in his contract. I think they're going to go trade. I think they're not going to go free agency when it comes to defensemen.
But they're going to go free agent on. They're going to try and get like a top 6 forward for sure.
Sure.
And again, we'll see who they can lure. I mean, it's easier said than done these days. The top 4 defensemen that they're going to say they're after, that Chuck Fletcher is going to say he's looking for, you go talk to the Leafs. That's going to be hard to get. Now, if they get Spurgeon and put him in the top 4, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's still going to cost them a lot. It's going to cost them a lot more than people think.
It's going to cost them one of their young defensemen because that's where Minnesota probably wants to go. They want like they've been doing with Donato and other moves with Fiala. They want to get cheaper and younger and open up cap space. And as to your point about the Leafs, again, if they lose in the first round, unless Patrick Marleau retires, one of Nylander, Janssen, or Kapanen needs to be traded for that defenseman. Otherwise, this is just an exercise in repetitive futility.
Yeah. I will. Anthony asks, can Carolina's defense beat a team like Boston or Toronto's offense and goaltending? I think Carolina is capable of beating them both. I think the Marlies can beat the Leafs right now.
No,
that's just me. The way they're playing.
Okay. One more question. Is Noah Syndergaard overrated? Yes, he is.
Yeah, every team would want an overrated pitcher like him.
I know.
Let's see. Quick prospect question from Hunter. Do you see Maxime Quantois as a center long-term, or do you see him switch? No, he's going to be a winger. He's one of those guys that can bang in the corners. He's fast. He's a high skill level. He's also an agitator. So I see Comtois being a winger, but a very effective one and a guy who definitely could score 20 goals. He's rounded out his game now, so I think maybe next year will be a big year for him.
I saw this online. I'll just get a quick hit on this and then we'll end it. I saw this from Jim Matheson from Edmonton. I don't know if it was a rumor or something he's heard or just speculation, but if you think about it from the point of view of Edmonton and from Buffalo, this deal makes a bit of sense. 1-for-1, Rasmus Ristolainen for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, that would give the Sabres the second center that they think that they need right now because they don't think Middlestad is ready to be a number 2 in the league.
It's not a horrible trade.
No, and it definitely would improve Edmonton's defense, although Ristolainen is minus 42 this year. He is.
Yeah, but I mean, it's more than that. I know. I think I do think that's a bad trade. Anthony was asking if we're going to the Frozen Four. Yes, we're both accredited for the Frozen Four. So yeah, we'll both be there. So if you want to have like a 3.5 minute tweet up before a game, that's fine, but that's it.
Yes, and we're going for chicken wings, but we're not saying where.
Right.
All right. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.